Hi, my name is Catherine Gloston, and this is my Module 3 presentation for ELRC 7550, titled The Integration of Objectivism and Constructivism in Instructional Design. So my points of discussion for this presentation will include first, the definitions of objectivists and constructivists. Then a quick discussion on Elander and Cronje's 2016 study. Then I'll move on to my experience and preferences with regards to Elander and Cronje's 2016 study. And then I'll wrap up with a brief conclusion. So the first stop is definitions. So this is just a brief description and explanation of objectivists and constructivists. Cronje stated many learning events or lessons contain both objectivist and constructivist elements. The Western Governors University stated that constructivism is based on the idea that people actively construct or make their own knowledge, and that reality is determined by your experiences as a learner. Basically, my biggest takeaway from constructivism is that it's a learning theory that believes that learning is determined and controlled by the learner. So constructivists, they use their own experiences, interpretations, and perceptions to make learning unique. Objectivist is the complete opposite of constructivism. So objectivism is basically that traditional instructional model. Objectivists believe that knowledge and truth exist outside the mind of the individual and are therefore objective. Their view is that learning is controlled by the instructor. Therefore, reality can be modeled and shared with others as we've structured our reality in the same manner. Next up is the discussion on Elander and Cronje's 2016 study. Here's an illustration of Cronje's 4 quadrants. Now, the first quadrant I'll discuss is the injection quadrant, which is high in direct instruction and low in constructivist elements. This paints the picture of the medical metaphor that's used by Cronje of like getting your knowledge and skills through taking a pill or having it injected. So in this quadrant, one would see the use of drills and practice and tutorials and lectures. The next one is the construction quadrant. Now this is high in constructivist elements and low in the direct instruction. Here you'll see more problem-based learning or authentic learning because it's designed in such a way that the learners, they construct their own meaning by building on their previous knowledge and experience. I thought of discovery learning when I read the construction quadrant. In discovery learning, children aren't given any instruction. They gain their own knowledge through basically self-discovery. The next quadrant is the immersion quadrant, which is low in elements of both direct instruction and constructive scaffolding. Now, this one, it amounts to basically being thrown in the deep end and accounts for learning by experience. So Cronje had originally called this quadrant chaos at one time. And I believe that this was done because there's no clear evidence of a conscious effort to facilitate and any opportunity for the learner to construct meaning. Like one of the examples he used to paint the picture of the immersion quadrant was for you to think about like a driver that changes lanes without checking their rearview mirror or like indicating that they're getting ready to switch lanes. And then that driver in the other lane, he's hooting his horn and flashing his lights and basically cursing now. All right. So the first driver will probably never forget to look and try to indicate that they're getting ready to switch lanes. So that was just that that basically you kind of get thrown into a situation to learn how to either learn from it in some manner. So either you're not going to do it again, or it's a good outcome and you end up doing it again. And the last quadrant is the integration quadrant, in which it's high in both elements, depending on the situation. So learners are either instructed or left to discover for themselves, either simultaneously or in rapid succession. So this is where the instructional designer would place. So Ellender and Cronje's 2016 study, it had a problem that was driving the research. So the problem statement was to determine the extent to which current instructional design practices could be plotted on a matrix rather than on a straight line. So to basically kind of address the problem, they came up with two related questions. First one, to what extent are instructional designers, course developers, and instructors integrating objectivist and constructivist elements in college and university courses? And the second question was how many elements would be found in each of the four quadrants? Remember the four quadrants: immersion, construction, integration, and injection. So with regards to the two questions, all right, to answer the first question, a null hypothesis was formulated. So the hypothesis they came up with was the results plotted on the matrix will not significantly differ. And to deal with the question number two, they came up with four sub-questions that were formulated. They said, one, will there be courses reported integrating objectivist and constructivist elements? The second, will there be integrated courses reported with a more constructivist orientation fitting the construction quadrant? A third, will there be integrated courses reported with a more objectivist orientation fitting the injection quadrant? And then fourth, will there be integrated courses reported where objectivist and constructivist approaches are being used equally, fitting the integration quadrant? So here's some details of the study. So 400 colleges out of the 2,551 U.S. colleges and universities were utilized in this study. All right. And 205 of them completed all research data questions. With the results, majority of the responses clustered in the injection quadrant, and the integration quadrant came in second. And 214 courses actually integrated both objectivist and constructivist learning approaches. So here's a graphic representation of the results, and that doesn't really help if you don't know what the actual questions asked to give you those results. So the first question was, again, will there be courses reported integrating objectivist and constructivist elements? And so here the results showed that there was about 100% of the courses that showed some degree of integration. All right, only 2 of the courses were close to being exclusively objectivist. The second question said, will there be integrated courses reported with a more constructivist orientation fitting that construction quadrant? So there were 13 responses, or 6.3% that plotted in the construction quadrant. Then the next question, the third question, asks, will there be integrated courses reported with a more objectivist orientation fitting the injection quadrant? And here we had 111 courses, or 53.8%, that was located in the injection quadrant. Then the fourth question asks, will there be integrated courses reported where objectivist and constructivist approaches are being used equally, fitting the integration quadrant. And there were 74 courses, or 36%, where were in the integration quadrant. Now, I'll discuss my experience and preferences as far as my stance on the eclectic approach of instructional design. So, although I carry a few different titles, my main thing that I focus on is being a math teacher. And with that, I have been noted to do a few different things in my class that would definitely show that I actually kind of integrate both objectivist and constructivist elements. So I am I do like to do discovery learning. That's the very first thing that I know. Most of the times what'll happen is when I'm getting ready to introduce my students to something new, I actually let them try to kind of discover and gain knowledge on their own. I won't give them any instructions. I'll give them, some videos that they could watch. I'll give them, some practice problems they can look at. But they're actually discovering how to solve these problems on their own based on what they're given or what they find on their own. And I don't give them any instructions. I say, hey, here's a sheet. I want you to go look at these videos, partner up with somebody and discover how to figure this out. And that's just to give them that ambition and drive to actually try to learn something just completely on their own. Then there's days where we're doing drills, we're doing practice, we're really, working together. I may have to lecture just for a little bit, but that problem-based learning and problem solving, they're doing it. Ultimately, once we're getting into our lesson and into that topic, I'm setting those clear objectives. So those are definitely something that I have to do. And then there's days where I have to give them the direct instruction because that topic may be totally over their head, and they're just not there yet. So they need that direct instruction. So I see myself definitely integrating both the objectivist and constructivist elements in my math classroom. In conclusion, Cronje utilized a statement by Mayer and Morano that learning depends on intensive use of elements from both sides of the continuum, and not from the extent to which one has been successful in claiming occupation of some gray and neutral middle ground. Ultimately, I think that learning, for me as a math teacher, definitely depends on the intensive use of both objectivism and constructivism. And I think for many other areas, we tend to use both sides of them. We just may not realize that we are. Here are my references used. Thank you for watching, and I welcome any feedback. Have a great day.